Zaraki Kenpachi is Zhao Shu's fifth template. He is from Shinigami, and is the captain of the 11th division of the Gotei 13, the 11th generation Kenpachi. He is also the first captain in Soul Society who doesn't understand Bankai, probably the only one. The name Kenpachi itself represents the title that only the person who loves fighting the most and kills the most enemies in the 13th division of the Gotei can possess. Its meaning is that no matter how many times he is cut, he will never fall down. And Zaraki Kenpachi is the one who killed the previous captain of the 11th division, Kiganjo Kenpachi, and obtained the title of Kenpachi. In Zhao Shu's world, he also has another nickname, the number 1 god tier in Soul Society. Of course, in the end of the story, he finally learned Shikai and Bankai, and can release skills. This is the man who, when he was a child was able to defeat Unohana Retsu, the first Kenpachi, captain of the 4th division of the Gotei 13. Later, because he enjoyed fighting with Unohana Retsu and was afraid of losing such an enemy, and losing the joy of battle, he subconsciously weakened himself to the same level as the enemy, in order to match Unohana Retsu's strength. After sealing his memories, he gradually became the familiar person to everyone. Yes, after becoming weaker, he used his god tier power to defeat the previous Kenpachi and became the captain of Soul Society. He is a battle maniac, and fighting is like food and water to him. He exists for the sake of battle, and regards battle as more important than anything else, even disregarding the overall situation. Only killing is the source of happiness. Because he enjoys the process of killing, he becomes stronger when facing strong opponents. I've come to fight you. Zaraki Kenpachi showed a smile. Although it was just a happy smile in his heart, in the eyes of the crew members of the Kaido pirates like Hold'em, it was a ferocious smile. Fierce killing intent enveloped the entire scene, as if it had substance, pressing down on everyone. The 13th division? Captain of the 11th division? Zaraki Kenpachi? Hold'em gritted his teeth. What the hell is that? Is it an organization that opposes Kaido-sama? In fact, the New World is completely divided among the 4 emperors. Except for a few bases belonging to the Marines, the rest are all territories of the 4 emperors. The pirates in the New World either belong to the 4 emperors or form alliances to oppose them. Just like the pirate alliance between Luffy and Trafalgar Law against Kaido, or the pirate alliance between Capone Beige and Charlotte Linlin against Big Mom. However, most pirates do not have the same level of action as these alliances. As an elite under the 4 emperors, when Hold'em heard the name 13th Division, he immediately thought of this aspect. Is the 13th Division made up of a total of 13 squads? And this guy is only ranked 11th? What? What a joke. Hold'em gritted his teeth. Even if the other captains are similar to him, or even weaker, there should still be 13 people of the same level. There are 13 similar individuals. Although there are constantly new heroes in this vast sea, how could so many suddenly appear? What's wrong? Just as Hold'em was pondering, he suddenly heard Zaraki Kenpachi speak. Didn't I say it? I've come to fight you. If you don't answer anything, does that mean we can start? Thump. His heart suddenly skipped a beat. Hold'em instinctively took a few steps back, waving his big hand. Everyone, attack together. Although not everyone in the Kaido Pirates is an extremely powerful individual, they are all strong. There might be some chance of winning if they attack together. Although they haven't fought yet, just from the killing intent alone, Hold'em doesn't think he has much chance of winning. That killing intent is too pure, it is the purest killing intent. This kind of killing intent, he has only seen it on Kaido of the Beasts, one of the 4 emperors. Together. Zaraki Kenpachi tilted his head. Although I specifically waited here to fight you. But it's not a bad thing to have more ants to clean up. Hold'em took a deep breath and suddenly drew his own sword. It was a sword with a star-shaped handguard, with a slender blade. Although it did not belong to the ranks of famous swords, it was still a fine piece. In the future, he would also obtain an artificial devil fruit, possessing the power of a lion and even the ability to attach flames to the blade. But the artificial devil fruit had not been created yet, and he did not have that ability now. But even so, he was a true opponent of 10 Kaido's pirate crews. Not bad. Zaraki Kenpachi showed a smile and casually commented, stiff posture, full of loopholes, but the killing intent is not bad, it must have killed many people. You barely live up to the reputation of a strong one I asked for, but you're not qualified enough to fight me. Zaraki Kenpachi said in a tone as if asking if he wanted something to eat. How about it, should I let you have a go? What? Hold'em was taken aback. I'll let you make the first cut. Zaraki Kenpachi calmly said, stretching out his hands and pulling open his clothes, revealing his sturdy chest. Anywhere is fine, go ahead and cut me. What? The members of Kaido's pirate crew's faces changed. What is this man talking nonsense about? This will be a bloody show. Kenpachi smiled and said, come on, whether it's the neck, the stomach, or the eyeballs. Or it would be even better if you kill me with this move. Don't be afraid here, come on. Kenpachi suddenly shouted, his eyes flickering with madness. Hold'em's face changed, and then he suddenly made a move. They were pirates, the ruthless and evil kind of pirates. The dignity of a warrior. Morality. What does that kind of thing matter to pirates? Since you want to die, then we dare to bury you. Swish. Hold'em suddenly swung his long sword. He was a true fighter of Kaido's beasts pirates. With all his strength, even a small mountain could be ridden down. With this move, he aimed straight for Zaraki Kenpachi's neck and swung. However, the air fell silent. The members of Kaido's pirate crew who were shouting and crazily rushing forward, maintaining their charging posture, stood still in a daze, their faces full of horror. Because Hold'em's sword, which was meant to strike Zaraki Kenpachi, didn't even scratch the man's skin. But the hand that held the sword was covered in blood, with the palm split open. What's wrong? Is this all you've got? The next second, everyone heard the disappointed sigh of that man. Really? What a disappointment. Hold'em stared blankly at his sword, and at his bleeding hand. The blood dripping down, and a faint pain came from his tiger's mouth. Is this a joke? Hold'em stared blankly, his expression dull. I clearly swung my sword with all my strength, but why? Why doesn't he have a single wound? Why? Is it my hand that's bleeding? This. How is this possible? What's wrong? Is this all you've got? In the next second, he heard the disappointed sigh of that man. What a disappointment. Hold'em's face changed, instinctively stepping back. He looked at Zaraki Kenpachi in horror and asked sharply, What ability did you use? What kind of devil fruit ability do you have? Ability. Devil fruit? What's that? Zaraki Kenpachi snorted disdainfully. Let me tell you why your sword can't hurt me. It's actually nothing special. Zaraki Kenpachi calmly explained, when the ryotsu of two people collide, the weaker person will get hurt, that's all. Simply put, it's just that the spiritual power I unconsciously released is a bit stronger than your sword meant for killing enemies. That's all there is to it. Ryotsu? Spiritual power? What is that? Everyone looked confused, completely unable to understand each other's words. Really, I've wasted so much time waiting for trash like you. Zaraki Kenpachi sighed. But forget it, it's disrespectful to talk too much to an enemy, so. He drew his sword. It was a long-sleeved sword, almost as tall as a short person when laid flat, commonly known as a field sword or a great sword. The handle of the sword was wrapped in white cloth, with no handguard, as if it was just a gap to distinguish the blade from the handle. And the most crucial part. The blade was covered in countless marks that resembled saw teeth. As if it had been hacked by countless swords. Now, it's my turn. Zaraki Kenpachi raised his sword high. At least, you can make this sword a bit sharper. I'm counting on you for a real fight. Hold'em's face changed drastically. Without hesitation, he jumped. For a moment, his subordinates hadn't even reacted. Did they really need to escape from a true fight, even as the four Emperor's pirate crew? But Hold'em didn't hesitate. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. He's too strong. This kind of existence is at least one of the three calamities. No, it might even be like Kaido-sama. Hold'em gritted his teeth, thinking of that most terrifying man. He actively sought death, but couldn't find a way to die. What's the difference between him and this man who can't even hurt a single hair with a sword? No, I can't stay here. I must escape. As for his subordinates, they stayed there just right, serving as cannon fodder for him, holding back that man. Perhaps he could still escape. But in the next second, a soft sigh appeared in his ear. I don't like playing the game of hawks catching chicks with weaklings. In the next second, Hold'em turned his head and saw a flash of a knife. Still, it was a dense forest. Although the water in the stream had been polluted and was harmful to animals and plants. But trees were still stronger than humans after all. Even if they absorbed some toxins, it wouldn't be a big problem. Zaraki Kenpachi casually leaned against a tree, and around him. It was filled with blood. The remains of the corpses and severed limbs were scattered around like a slaughterhouse. Blood flowed on the ground, almost forming a small blood spring, turning into the most nutritious fertilizer. Zaraki Kenpachi. This character is strong. Zhao Shu squinted his eyes and thought to himself. Host. Zhao Shu. Character template possessed. 1. Uchiha Madara, 83%. 2. 71%. Gilgamesh, 59%. 4. Ito Makoto, 36%. 5. Zaraki Kenpachi, 37%. With 37% Zaraki Kenpachi, considering his peak period was 80% in terms of realism, it was roughly equivalent to half of his peak period. Of course, all the data was weakened by half, not his actual strength. However, considering the way Shinigami's Shikai was several times stronger and Bankai was 10 times stronger, when Zhao Shu just obtained this character template, Kenpachi already had the strength of a captain. Basically, it could be said that Zhao Shu now possessed all the power of this character. After all, when Kenpachi learned Shikai and Bankai. Not to mention anime, even the manga was almost finished. So basically, what Zhao Shu currently possessed was the power of Kenpachi that he was most familiar with. The only man in Soul Society who had captain-level strength without relying on Zanpakuto release. The increase in realism is not bad. Although it is the result of my deliberate use of hypnosis, it has indeed increased a lot of realism when facing a true enemy who is second only to the 3 calamities in the Kaido Pirates. Yes, in fact, many of Hold'em's inner thoughts were spoken by Zhao Shu through hypnosis. Otherwise, why would they resemble Kurosaki Ichigo's inner thoughts when Kenpachi first appeared? But unfortunately, although Hold'em was a true fighter under Kaido, he couldn't compare to the protagonist who had cheats. His inner thoughts were completely useless. So, what's next? Zhao Shu squinted his eyes. This Wano country was specially chosen by him as the stage for Kenpachi's appearance. And his opponent. Suddenly, in the nearby bushes, there was a surge, and a little girl suddenly emerged from the bushes. Zhao Shu glanced over. Speaking of which, it seemed that Hold'em and the others were originally chasing after a runaway little girl. The girl was not big, about 14 or 15 years old, with beautiful emerald-colored long hair styled like a noble princess. She had delicate features, wore a pink flower ornament on her head, and was dressed in a gorgeous kimono. She wore tall wooden clogs on her feet. Although her face was a bit disheveled, her beautiful appearance could still be vaguely seen. When the girl grew up, she would probably be even more charming. Wait, this person is not. Zhao Shu suddenly narrowed his eyes. Kozuki Hyori, or should I say, Oiran Murasaki. Kozuki Hyori is the princess of the Kozuki family in Wano country and the younger sister of Momosuke. When the Kozuki clan was attacked by General Kurozumi Orochi, Hyori and Momosuke's mother, with the power of the time fruit, sent Momosuke, Kinemon, and others 20 years into the future, which is the time when Luffy goes to the New World. However, Hyori was left behind in Wano country due to concerns about the time travel process. Afterwards, she wandered around and got lost, and after losing her retainers, she took on the name, Oiran Murasaki, and became the #1 beauty in Wano country, even capturing the attention of Kurozumi Orochi. She is also one of the 3 top-tier beauties in the One Piece world, along with Empress Hancock and Princess Shirahoshi. As her thoughts wandered, Zhao Shu, playing the role of Zaraki Kenpachi, simply lowered his head and glanced at her, saying, "Where did you come from, little brat? Aren't you afraid of this sword?" Hyori crawled out of the bushes, her 2 beautiful eyes curiously looking at Kenpachi, her own sword, and the swords of the Kaido subordinates lying around. She truly wasn't afraid of swords. A sword is a deadly weapon, but it is also a means of survival. It is a symbol of power and a necessary existence for the survival of Wano country. Upon hearing Kenpachi's question, she simply smiled and shook her head, indicating that she wasn't afraid. Then, she looked at this burly man with admiration in her eyes. This person is so strong. Hyori thought to herself, he easily defeated the true fighters of Kaido's pirate crew. She had originally hidden herself, hoping to evade the pursuit of Kaido's men. But she never expected to witness such a scene. True fighters are the embodiment of Kaido's pirate crew's power. Even though Wano country has many formidable warriors, they still fall in the face of many powerful true fighters, dying in battle. This power is the true reason why Wano country has never seen a rebellion. However, now, a true fighter strong enough to stop a crying child has been killed, as if he were trash. This scene was too astonishing, even she was stunned. When she regained her senses, Kenpachi was already casually leaning against the side, resting his eyes. Hyori and Kaido's pirate crew, as well as General Kurozumi Orochi, are mortal enemies. She saw someone daring enough to kill Kaido, so naturally, she wouldn't harbor any hatred. But she also wouldn't have the intention to approach him voluntarily. If she were to approach anyone she saw, she wouldn't be able to grow slowly and survive these 20 years, eventually getting close to her archenemy, Kurozumi Orochi. Originally, she planned to retreat and escape from here. However, when she was about to retreat after being captivated by what she saw earlier, she accidentally stepped on a dry branch and made some noise. How could such a formidable warrior not hear the sound she made? So, she gritted her teeth and boldly walked out. In reality, she didn't know that with the current personality of Zhao Shu's Zaraki Kenpachi, even if a weakling made a sound, he wouldn't care at all. In his eyes, there are only the strong, or rather, only through battle. Kozuki Hyori stepped forward, revealing an innocent smile. As someone who has been hunted by Kaido since childhood, left her retainers and continued to survive, and even became a courtesan, she is not naive. But she is very good at acting. At this moment, showing an innocent smile can lower the opponent's vigilance. In her heart, Kozuki Hyori said to herself as she slowly approached. Not too fast to arouse the opponent's vigilance, but not too timid to arouse suspicion. However, in reality, Kozuki Hyori's actions were completely in vain. She only heard Zaraki Kenpachi speak up, "Little brat, what's your name?" Ah? Kozuki Hyori was stunned, a hint of panic flashed in her eyes. Could it be that this man has discovered my identity? Finding a member of the Kozuki bloodline could earn a considerable reward from Kurozumi Orochi. Don't have one, Zaraki Kenpachi calmly said. Kozuki Hyori's eyes turned, immediately giving a reasonable reason. Samurai-sama, my head feels a bit dizzy, I don't remember my name. I have amnesia. Amnesia is a convenient excuse. If there are any actions in the future that don't fit the amnesia persona, I can still cunningly say, I have intermittent amnesia. I just don't remember my name, but I remember some other things and other excuses. Although this is a very cliché reason, when combined with Kozuki Hyori's sincere expression, it is enough to make ordinary people trust her. In reality, she often uses various tricks to deceive wealthy landowners who oppress the common people, obtaining a large amount of ill-gotten wealth from them, causing them to lose everything. And those wealthy landowners, even if they know they have been deceived, still willingly come to her. It's all because of her expression, although many people know her reputation, and even she herself has been tricked before. But when faced with her smile again, they just can't believe that she would have any ill intentions. Yasutora. Zaraki Kenpachi suddenly spoke. Kozuki Hyori was stunned. Then from now on, just call yourself Yasutora, Zaraki Kenpachi calmly said. I just hope that there is at least one person in this world who can call themselves that. Here you go. Kozuki Hyori was stunned, and subconsciously murmured, Yasutora. Yasutora, Zaraki Kenpachi calmly said, his voice as hoarse as ever, even in this world, I hope there is at least one person who can call themselves that. Kozuki Hyori paused for a moment, then showed a smile. Okay, then I'll call myself Yasutora from now on. Names and such don't mean anything to her. After all, she can't use her own name in this country ruled by Kurozumi Orochi. So it's not strange to change it to Yasutora. Although this name is indeed strange, she doesn't mind. What's the difference in using an alias? However, she didn't see Zaraki Kenpachi, or rather, Zhao Shu, show a smile. Very well, I'll trouble you to play the role of Yasutora well and accompany me in this performance. In the world of Shinigami, Madarame Akaku, a subordinate of Zaraki Kenpachi, once said the following. Naming the opponent you want to kill is a rule that the person who taught me how to fight will definitely mention. Because someone who is already determined to die on the battlefield at least wants to know who killed them. Although it didn't specify who taught him how to fight, it's most likely Zaraki Kenpachi. Because Zaraki Kenpachi remembers the names of those he can fight against. Zaraki Kenpachi was either very strong or very weak when he was young. Because he enjoyed fighting with Unohana Retsu, he was afraid of losing such an enemy, and losing the joy of battle. In order to match Unohana Retsu's strength, he subconsciously weakened himself to the same level as the enemy and was defeated. Later on, he chose to seal his own power in order to enjoy the fight. As a result, he eventually lost his memory and wandered in Rukongai. However, even so, he still remembered the name, Yachiru. Naming Kusajishi Yachiru was because even if Kenpachi lost his memory, he faintly remembered the name Yachiru, Unohana Retsu, also known as Yuuzan Hachisu Ryu. So, he named her Yachiru, and now, please play the role of my Yachiru well. Zhao Shu squinted his eyes and glanced at the girl beside him. Without knowing it, Long played the role of Senju Hashirama, greatly enhancing the realism of Uchiha Madara. So now, please play the role of my Yachiru well. Kusajishi Yachiru is innocent and naive, and Kozuki Hyori can achieve a similar performance with an acting face. Anyway, everyone is acting, as long as the effect is achieved, I don't mind what you think in your heart. Of course, the two have just met, Kozuki Hyori. Or rather, Yachiru is not brave enough to jump on Zaraki Kenpachi's back like Kusajishi Yachiru. So, you want to find a strong opponent? Kozuki Hyori asked with curiosity. The two walked in the forest, and Zaraki Kenpachi's tall body avoided the branches beside him and walked forward slowly. Yes, Zaraki Kenpachi responded calmly. It's a waste of time for me to look for him for so long, and the result is disappointing. He did indeed look for a specific opponent. Originally, after Zhao Shu arrived in Wano country, he pretended to be someone who knew nothing and specifically asked people who was strong. Then, from the mouth of a surviving villager in a destroyed village, he learned about the true fighter of Kaido's pirate crew, Hold'em. After that, he specifically sought him out. It is estimated that the villager's house was destroyed by Hold'em, so Zhao Shu did not hear about Kaido or Kurozumi Orochi from him, but instead heard about Hold'em. Oh? Kozuki Hyori's eyes turned. I see. A battle maniac. That's how Kozuki Hyori defined Zaraki Kenpachi. In fact, there are many similar individuals in Wano country. The geographical environment of Wano country is closed, and there are always some powerful warriors who are addicted to fighting and even want to test their skills by killing. Of course, by now, those warriors either died, surrendered to Kurozumi Orochi, or simply became thieves in the mountains. So, should I make use of him? Kozuki Hyori thought to herself. After all, he wants to fight, and I also want to seek revenge against Kurozumi Orochi. The two are not in conflict, and they can even complement each other. Kurozumi Orochi has quite a few strong individuals on his side, including the warriors of Wano country and Kaido's subordinates. He himself is also a capable individual. Since Kenpachi wants to fight and wants to fight against strong opponents, it's normal to let him take action, right? However, after a moment of contemplation, Kozuki Hyori ultimately did not reveal the information about Kurozumi Orochi. Kurozumi Orochi is very powerful and extremely cunning. But the group led by Kaido is even stronger. It's better not to provoke those people. Kozuki Hyori's mouth curled, thinking to herself, although I feel that with his personality, he will definitely run into those people. But isn't it good to live one more day? Even if Zaraki Kenpachi easily defeats Kaido's top subordinates, she doesn't think Kenpachi will win. After all, they are the four emperors. Oh? It seems like you have a bit of kindness. Zhao Shu's mouth curled upwards. He naturally understood the thought process of a young girl. No matter how Kozuki Hyori calculated in her heart, that trace of kindness remained. But this will affect my plan. It will take a lot more time. Zhao Shu thought to himself. He was prepared to take down Kaido, suddenly. Gurgle. The sound of a stomach growling made Kozuki Hyori's face instantly turn red. Are you hungry, Hachimaru? Zaraki Kenpachi tilted his head slightly. No. I'm not hungry. Kozuki Hyori gritted her teeth and forced herself to say, just now, I stepped on a bubble of mud and it made that sound. How could a woman of the samurai family let her stomach growl? It's simply a disgrace to the samurai. Oh. Zaraki Kenpachi responded with a grunt. After a moment of silence, he suddenly reached out and picked a fruit from a nearby tree. If you're hungry, then eat. Kozuki Hyori's lips moved, but she hesitated. She was indeed very hungry. Kaido's men had already come to kill her, and she hadn't even had a meal before running away. You can't eat this fruit. Kozuki Hyori sighed and said, the wastewater from Kaido's factory has contaminated the surrounding water sources. The fruits from the trees here and the wild animals that live here are all inedible. What can we eat then? Zaraki Kenpachi asked calmly. Only the vegetables and meat grown in the special farm left behind by Kaido and the shogun. Kozuki Hyori whispered, in the past, in the farm, you could still see Oden Castle. Oden Castle was a fortress built by the Kozuki clan. It was also her former home. Unfortunately, Oden Castle had long been destroyed by Kaido, and the farm was also sealed off, guarded by powerful soldiers, only for the enjoyment of the officials. Apart from here, there was no safe food in all of Wano country. What's the big deal? Isn't it simple? Zaraki Kenpachi grunted and said, just go there and find something to eat. Let's go, Hachimaru. Huh? Where are we going? Kozuki Hyori was taken aback. Of course, to the farm. Zaraki Kenpachi said matter-of-factly, didn't you say there's good food there? Kozuki Hyori was dumbfounded. Yes, there was good food there. You will become an enemy of Kaido and the shogun if you do this. Kozuki Hyori's face showed a hint of urgency, wanting to advise but not knowing how to persuade this man. They were rushing towards the farm. What should we do? Kozuki Hyori was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Although she casually mentioned that there were ingredients here, she didn't actually intend for Zaraki Kenpachi to come here and get anything. With your strength, instead of coming here to confront the general and Kaido head-on, why not just rob someone else? There are plenty of unscrupulous wealthy landowners in the city, can't we target them? Why provoke Kaido and the general? Kozuki Hyori became increasingly anxious, but didn't know how to broach the subject. In fact, she had already mentioned the reasons for her appeal more than once, but Kenpachi's response was, you said they're strong? Yes, so we absolutely must not provoke them. That's great. I was just looking for someone stronger than that so-called true strike. It wouldn't be interesting if they were too weak. He became even more excited. So he quickly made a decision to go to the farm and see if they would come out after a while. If they didn't, then we'll take the initiative to attack. Zaraki Kenpachi never lacked the subjective initiative to pursue battle. What should we do now? Kozuki Hyori forced a bitter smile, but could only lie on Zaraki Kenpachi's back and sigh helplessly. Now she was lying on Zaraki Kenpachi's back because he found her too slow and thought it would delay the fight. So he followed her suggestion subconsciously. As a samurai, wouldn't it be undignified to have someone lying on top of you? Especially a girl like herself. But with his spacious back and agile body, even if his pace was extremely fast, not a single gust of wind would touch her. Unknowingly, she felt a sense of security. Where should we go next? Zaraki Kenpachi asked while running. Let me see. Kozuki Hyori emerged from behind and looked around, pointing to one side. Turn left at the fork. Oh. Zaraki Kenpachi responded and continued running. 30 minutes later, the two of them looked at the cliff in front of them, completely dumbfounded. Hey, how did you give directions? Zaraki Kenpachi sighed. That's strange, it shouldn't be like this. Kozuki Hyori looked confused. She didn't intend to give the wrong direction, she was genuinely leading the way. After all, even if she didn't lead, others knew the location of the farm, so they would just take a detour. Why is there a cliff ahead now? Kozuki Hyori was completely bewildered. What should we do next? Zaraki Kenpachi asked. Let's retreat and go right at the previous intersection. Yes, it should be to the right. Kozuki Hyori hesitated for a moment, then confidently said. Zaraki Kenpachi casually replied, is that so? And continued running. 20 minutes later, the two of them stood there dumbfounded, looking at the familiar cliff in front of them. What on earth is going on? Kozuki Hyori looked puzzled. She had just heard Zaraki Kenpachi say that he had a poor sense of direction and was not good at perception. But she didn't have these problems. At the second intersection just now, we should have gone straight. Kozuki Hyori took a deep breath and said seriously, this time, I'm sure we're right. 40 minutes later, the two of them looked at the familiar cliff and fell into silence. After a moment of silence, damn it, let's just go with my intuition, Zaraki Kenpachi said with an unchanged expression. Yeah, let's go. Kozuki Hyori wiped the sweat from her forehead. After several times of pointing in the wrong direction, she dared not lead the way anymore. If this were during the war, leading the army in the wrong direction would have meant being executed. It's strange, why suddenly do I not recognize the way? My sense of direction isn't that bad, right? Kozuki Hyori wondered in her heart. So, from then on, Kenpachi took the lead. The next morning, the two finally arrived at the farm. We actually ran for a whole day. Kozuki Hyori's mouth twitched as she looked at the familiar scenery, almost feeling tears welling up. They ran for a whole day. They asked the people around them at least 30 times, and in the end, they accidentally took a turn and found the farm. Kenpachi was running so fast, I could see the scenery on both sides flying by even when I was behind him. Kozuki Hyori forced a bitter smile. If we calculate based on the distance alone, we should have circled Wano-kuni several times by now. That's really. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. In reality, Zhao Shu was not really bad with directions, and Kozuki Hyori was not directionally challenged either. But Zhao Shu was an actor, so he immediately acted like he was bad with directions. Kozuki Hyori was not a fool, she knew the way, so. Zhao Shu used illusions to interfere with her sense of direction and vision. It wasn't that he didn't try his best to lead the way, but there was a spy nearby. Very well, it looks like you'll be able to have lunch soon. Zaraki Kenpachi said calmly, his voice as hoarse as ever. Are you sure it's not breakfast? Or maybe the next days? Kozuki Hyori's mouth twitched. It seems so. Zaraki Kenpachi's mouth revealed a hint of madness. But it doesn't matter, there should be strong fighters in the farm. After all, from what you guys have said, this place seems important. There should be a real fight. Kozuki Hyori hesitated. Zaraki Kenpachi laughed heartily, excitement flashing in his eyes. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Wano-kuni, the flower capital. This is the capital city of General Kurozumi Orochi and the most prosperous place in Wano-kuni. Or rather, it may be the only place still thriving. At this moment, the phone in the shogun's castle suddenly rang. Although Wano-kuni did not have telephones like the outside world, they had intelligent snails, a tool similar to telephones. Shogun Kurozumi Orochi frowned and answered the phone. Initially absent-minded, he suddenly stood up and his face changed drastically after listening to the voice on the phone for only 3 seconds. He looked gloomy. What did you say? My farm has been occupied. The real fighter Babanuki left by Kaido was killed. Are you sure you're not telling a joke? We don't have April Fool's Day in Wano-kuni. In an instant, the air inside the Tenshukaku was stagnant. Kurozumi Orochi emitted a dark aura that sent shivers down one's spine. But what was even more chilling were his words just now. Has the farm been taken over? Did Zoro, the true swordsman, really get killed? How is that possible? In Wano-kuni, how could there be someone who can defeat Zoro? Click. Kurozumi Orochi hung up the phone, squinting his eyes. General, a nearby samurai asked in a low voice, do you need us? Kurozumi Orochi remained silent for a moment, a glint of determination flashing in his eyes. Yes, we do need to take action, he said. Then, he turned his head and looked at a slender figure. Do you need me to intervene? It was a slender samurai wearing a kimono with the circle painted on it, his eyes squinted as if he were asleep. Kiyoshiro, the official merchant of the Kurozumi family, the money changer, and most importantly. He is the only person in Wano-kuni, apart from Kaido's crew, who dares to question Kurozumi Orochi's orders. Because he is strong, very strong, extremely strong. One could even say, the strongest swordsman in contemporary Wano-kuni. I leave it to you. Kurozumi Orochi didn't mince his words and nodded directly. Take the palace guards with you. Understood. Kiyoshiro, seemingly half asleep, nodded and stood up, walking straight out. Behind him followed a group of peculiarly dressed individuals, each with a different appearance. The palace guards were originally the bodyguards of Kozuki Oden. 20 years ago, they betrayed him and joined Kurozumi Orochi. They have now become the direct guards of General Kurozumi Orochi and possess considerable strength. After making the arrangements, Kurozumi Orochi sighed, I'll make a call to Onigashima. In reality, the farm being attacked is nothing to him, who controls all of Wano-kuni. The death of Zoro, on the other hand, is what truly unsettles him. Although the general of Wano-kuni and Kaido are allies, General Kurozumi Orochi is well aware that his status is more than one level lower than Kaido's. He relies on his formidable strength and the alliance's name. But this ally must absolutely not be offended. Without hesitation, he dialed Onigashima. Onigashima is the base of Kaido and his crew, located near Wano-kuni, or rather, it used to be part of Wano-kuni. The call was quickly answered. Hello. A greasy voice sounded. Queen? Kurozumi Orochi frowned. Why is it you? Where's Kaido? The captain went out, probably looking for excitement somewhere. The voice on the other end sounded indifferent. What's up? Do you have something to discuss? It's the same with him. So after a moment of silence, Kurozumi Orochi spoke directly. I just received news that my farm has been taken over by a group of people, and your Zoro has died. I've already sent Kiyoshiro over. It shouldn't take long. Before Kurozumi Orochi could finish speaking, an angry voice filled with rage came from the Den Mushi. Who did it? Who is it? They dare to provoke us, the beast's pirates. The anger in the Den Mushi can still be felt, even through the Den Mushi. Kurozumi Orochi remained silent for a moment and said, it's a man named Zaraki Kenpachi. He claims to be the captain of the 11th division of the Gotei 13. Meanwhile, inside the farm, he actually did it so easily. Kazuki Hyori looked at the sturdy figure in the distance and couldn't help but bite her lip. Zaraki Kenpachi, this man once again effortlessly defeated a powerful opponent and cut him down with one slash. So strong. Too strong. Babanuki is definitely not weak among the powerful opponents. But he was still easily killed by this man, just like before. Even if the opponent could freely attack him, he couldn't even cut through his skin. Who is this person? Yoruichi couldn't help but wonder in her heart. The Gotei 13th Division, what is that? It sounds a bit like the former Onmitsukido of our family. The term, division, is unique to Wano country and cannot be heard in the outside world. But if it's a term from Wano country, why hasn't she ever heard of a similar name? And are there really 13 people, all of them as powerful as him? Her thoughts were chaotic, but Kazuki Hyori quickly shook her head. She had more important things to do now. Hurry, faster. Kazuki Hyori couldn't help but shout, quickly move everything. Otherwise when the general's men arrive, there will be nothing left. Not far away, a large group of people were excitedly moving food. Fruits, vegetables, rice, flour. They even refused to abandon the husks of rice and wheat, directly packing them all up and moving them down, bag after bag. These people were all called by her. The farm was too big, originally enough to supply the food for all the officials and the people who served them, it was impossible for her to finish it alone. So she simply called the villagers around her to help move it. Take as much as you can, and once you take it, it's yours. Kaido and the general have been exploiting the people of Wano country too much, they can't even guarantee food. Now that they have learned that the food here can be taken freely, everyone, whether they are 70-year-old old men or 5-year-old children, is desperately moving the food. Other things can be left behind, but the food must be taken. This is their guarantee for survival in the future. In fact, if it weren't for Kozuki Hyori not revealing her surname and only calling herself Hachimaru, it is estimated that the villagers of Wano country would kneel before her and ask her to lead them in resisting the general. The people of Wano country have been suppressed and suffered too much. Just a spark, and it will immediately ignite the fire. Kozuki Hyori sighed and couldn't help but look at the man sitting at the entrance of the farm with his eyes closed. The solid arms, sturdy figure, all give a sense of security. After hesitating for a moment, Kozuki Hyori walked to the side of Zaraki Kenpachi. Please prepare for battle, Kozuki Hyori whispered. The farm is not far from the flower capital. Even if we kill most of the samurai and pirates, and kill their mounts, it will make it difficult for them to contact the general. But with such a short distance, they will definitely react quickly. That's why she kept encouraging the people of the country to quickly move the food. Because there is simply not much time. Suddenly, Zaraki Kenpachi opened his eyes. No need, they're here. No need, they're here, came the calm words, causing Kozuki Hyori's heart to tremble. Subconsciously, she followed Zaraki Kenpachi's gaze into the distance, and sure enough, she saw a group of people. A group of people, each with a different appearance. There were elderly people with long heads, young men in ninja outfits, dancing women with musical instruments, and children wearing kimonos. The Oniwabanshu. Kozuki Hyori's heart trembled. These people were once part of her Kozuki clan but eventually betrayed them. And the reason Kurozumi Orochi was willing to subdue them was not only because they had already betrayed before the decisive battle, but also because they were extremely powerful. So, he was willing to give them a chance. In fact, their strength was proven by many future tasks. The Oniwabanshu had always been the main force in suppressing the rebellion in Wano-kuni, appearing in various locations. Seeing the traitors of her own clan, Kozuki Hyori naturally felt a surge of new and old hatred. However, her gaze was more focused on the man leading them. Shinobu. He's here too? Kozuki Hyori's face changed slightly. What, is he strong? Zaraki Kenpachi grinned. I can feel the killing intent from him. Killing intent? Kozuki Hyori was stunned, keenly noticing the crimson on Shinobu's body. He killed people. No, not just him. Kozuki Hyori's heart trembled. The members of the Oniwabanshu also carried a hint of bloodiness to varying degrees. They are the villagers who came down from the mountain. Kozuki Hyori gritted her teeth, immediately realizing this fact. The villagers were encouraged by her to come and transport food, but unfortunately, they encountered them. In fact, all the villagers were well aware of the risks of transporting food, and even had some suspicions of retaliation afterwards. But in the face of imminent starvation, who would care about revenge? Even if there was revenge, I'll wait until I'm full before worrying about it. Unfortunately, although most of the people were safe, there were still some who couldn't avoid it. Kozuki Hyori bit her lip, feeling powerless about this. She could only try to make the villagers move faster and avoid the possible routes of the enemy as much as possible. There were too many routes to the farm. Even if Kenpachi walked forward to the intersection, he couldn't guarantee that he would encounter them. Is it you guys? Shinobu squinted his eyes, the rebels who killed the real deal and occupied the farm. Why did you kill those villagers? They were just forced by me to transport food. Kozuki Hyori gritted her teeth. This was the excuse she came up with to help the villagers avoid Kurozumi Orochi's poisonous hands. Forced? Shinobu tilted his head. They seemed pretty happy to me. But it doesn't matter, anyway, no matter what they do, I will kill them. After all. He raised his head, revealing a smile that was not quite a smile. I am the general's dog. The general's order is to kill the thieves who occupied the farm, along with the surrounding civilians. Together? Even the civilians? Kozuki Hyori's face changed slightly. Shinobu's eyes carried a smile. After all, those ignorant people knew that the general's enemies were here, but they still didn't go all out to kill them. That in itself is a betrayal of the general. Kozuki Hyori's heart trembled. As a young girl, even if she was very mature and even imagined the general to be extremely fierce. But I never expected that they would be even more ruthless than I imagined. Finally escaped. Zaraki Kenpachi yawned and slowly stood up. I'm getting tired of waiting. Oh? Suimian Kuang Salang squinted his eyes, his gaze falling on Zaraki Kenpachi. The instinct of a swordsman told him that the man in front of him was very strong. HMPH. There's no need for Lord Kuang Salang to take action. The thief who stole the general's wealth will be captured and given to the general. The members of the Gotei 13 snorted coldly and suddenly rushed forward. Each of them possessed unique skills and extraordinary strength. Kozuki Hyori's expression changed slightly, about to give a warning. But in the next second. Really, I don't really want to play with small fry for too long, after all. The one behind seems to be more interesting. Casual words, but they turned into 10 blood-red figures in front of them. Swish. 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 The blades flickered, and that slender Zanpakuto instantly brought forth streaks of blood. And then, thump, thump, the sound of heavy objects falling to the ground. The famous members of the Gotei 13, all turned into corpses. Kenpachi is actually this strong? Kozuki Hyori widened her eyes, a halo flowing in her beautiful eyes. Strength naturally attracts admiration, especially in this Wano-kuni. Oh, interesting. Suimian Kuang Salang revealed a smile. It's been a long time since I've seen such a powerful warrior. Be careful. Kozuki Hyori hurriedly said. Kenpachi, Kuang Salang is strong, possibly the strongest swordsman in Wano-kuni. Wano-kuna's strength is formidable among the nations. Even the world government has no way to deal with him and can only reluctantly acknowledge Wano-kuna's isolation. Because the swordsmen of Wano-kuni are extraordinary. And Suimian Kuang Salang is the pinnacle among Wano-kuna's 38 swordsmen. However, before Kozuki Hyori could finish speaking, she suddenly saw Suimian Kuang Salang's figure rushing out. Zaraki Kenpachi raised his hand, holding the slender Zanpakuto. Clang. The swords clashed, making a crisp sound. Indeed, very strong. But, swish, the blades flickered. A bloodstain was drawn across Zaraki Kenpachi's chest. He's injured. Kozuki Hyori's expression changed slightly. The body that couldn't be harmed by Zanpakuto before was injured? Drip, drip, drip. Blood dripped, falling on the soil beneath their feet, making a muffled sound, leaving small red pits on the soft soil. However, the injured Zaraki Kenpachi instead revealed a happy smile. Those true fighters, with such a loud reputation, turned out to be a bunch of trash. I thought there weren't many capable fighters in Wano-kuni. What? Aren't there still a few capable fighters? Expressing extreme joy, as if he had obtained the most precious treasure. But in Zhao Shu's heart, he cursed loudly. Damn it, Zaraki Kenpachi, this show-off maniac, always has to hold back his strength and enjoy what kind of damn battle. He made me get injured. If it weren't for acting, I would have cut you down with one strike. Zaraki Kenpachi has a very, very bad habit, which is to enjoy suppressing his own strength. Clearly, he is very strong, but in order to experience the joy of battle, he often suppresses his own strength and fights, play together with the opponent's strength. Even though he could kill the opponent with one full strength strike from the beginning, he insists on fighting slowly, playing slowly, and even allowing himself to be struck a few times as a concession, truly a battle maniac. This person is truly a hero. Zhao Shu praised on the surface, but cursed him as an idiot in his heart. But there's nothing he can do, he is currently playing the role of an idiot, he can't curse himself, right? So the result is, even though you can kill the opponent with one strike, you have to find ways to make the fight more exciting. If the opponent's defense is impenetrable, then there's nothing to say, killing them with one strike is not a problem. But for someone who can exchange a few moves with himself, he has to rack his brains and engage in a battle of wits with himself. Of course, he hasn't forgotten to act. Zaraki Kenpachi's mouth curled into a crazy smile as he slowly walked towards Sleepyhead Madarame. Don't slack off, it's only just begun. That's when it gets fun. Right? Sleepyhead Madarame squinted his eyes, a hint of astonishment in his eyes. This big man exuded an extremely fierce aura, suddenly rising from his body. He held his sword with one hand, a fanatical smile on his lips, and the joy in his eyes, as if he had found his favorite treasure. He looks very happy. This voice appeared in the hearts of Sleepyhead Madarame and Kozuki Hyori. Boom. Zaraki Kenpachi suddenly charged forward, the smile on his lips never fading. Swish. His slender Zanpakuto came down fiercely. Sleepyhead Madarame's pupils contracted, holding his sword with both hands, he met it head-on. The clash of the two swords resounded between them, an invisible shockwave spreading out, sweeping away the surrounding soil and dust. Clang. 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 The sound of the collision between the swords continued to ring between the two. Such great strength, being able to suppress my sword with just one hand while wielding a field sword. Sleepyhead Madarame slightly opened his eyes that had been squinted, a hint of seriousness flashing in his eyes. He was not sure if Zaraki Kenpachi's sword was a Zanpakuto, but he was familiar with this type of sword. The field sword is not actually a sword used in martial arts, but a weapon used in battles between armies. Because it is too long, the long and narrow blade makes it difficult to deal with close-range attacks. Just now, he took advantage of this point to get close and scratch Zaraki Kenpachi. To be able to wield this long field sword with one hand and compete in strength with himself, and even faintly suppress himself. He's really strong, no wonder Kaido's true fight would die in his hands. However, I am stronger than the true fight. Clang. 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 The two swords kept flashing, fiercely colliding with each other. Suddenly, sleepyhead Madarami's pupils contracted. He saw the man in front of him suddenly grab his sword with one hand. Then he pulled it towards him, and was about to stab him with his Zanpakuto. Boom. Sleeping Mad Sorrow leaned to one side, avoiding the oncoming sword thrust. Then he kicked Zaraki Kenpachi's hand holding the sword, creating distance. This fighting style is definitely not the way of a normal warrior. Sleeping Mad Sorrow squinted his eyes, his gaze becoming more serious. Although he himself was completely unharmed just now, there were even bloodstains on Kenpachi's arm where he was holding the sword. His heart, on the contrary, was greatly shocked. This fighting style is definitely not the way of a warrior, but more like a berserker. However, I am, after all, Wanakuna's renowned swordsman. Let me show you the true way of using a sword. Sleeping Mad Sorrow suddenly raised his head, about to attack. But suddenly, he found that Zaraki Kenpachi's figure in front of him had disappeared. Gone? Where did he launch his attack from? Ding dong. A crisp bell sound rang from behind him. Sleeping Mad Sorrow quickly turned around, raising his sword to block Zaraki Kenpachi's strike. Very good, a very nice reaction. Zaraki Kenpachi's smile grew wider, his eyes becoming even more crazed. Clang. The two separated once again. You can already hear the bell. Not bad, it's more interesting this way. Zaraki Kenpachi revealed a smile. HMPH, it's your own mistake. Sleeping Mad Sorrow coldly snorted. As a warrior, how could you wear a bell? This kind of thing will expose your direction. If it weren't for the bell ringing, he might really have died. You're really stupid. Zaraki Kenpachi couldn't help but sneer. Whether it's a bell or an eye patch, they're all worn to enjoy the fight more. If you can't understand the reason behind them, then I have no reason to wear these things. I wear the bell so that you can catch me. If you don't make good use of these advantages, the fight will be boring. What if I accidentally kill you? The straightforward words made Sleeping Mad Sorrow and Kozuki Hyori involuntarily swallow their saliva. This man, he's really HMPH, who knows if it's your plan? Sleeping Mad Sorrow was not a rookie either. He quickly realized and sneered, who knows if you have any other plans, like intentionally throwing the bell aside to attract my attention, and then taking the opportunity to ambush. Zaraki Kenpachi frowned. I wouldn't do such a boring thing. Can we trust the words of an enemy? Sleeping Mad Sorrow scoffed. After all, he was Wanakuna's warrior, a swordsman who emerged from the chaos of war. His will was not so easily shaken, but in reality, he also understood. This man is not someone who would resort to such petty tricks. Even though they haven't known each other for long, he could clearly feel the nature of this man. Fearless of death, fearless of pain, and fond of fighting. Whether it's death or pain, it's just a trivial price to pay for enjoying the fight. A hint of madness flashed in Zaraki Kenpachi's eyes. Come on, let's enjoy the fight together. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of swords clashing continued. Wild and unrestrained laughter also continued. Ha ha ha. The figures of Zaraki Kenpachi and Asken Lavar intertwined, with blades flashing and blood splattering. Zaraki Kenpachi never fought with a pretentious demeanor like some who thought they were elegant. Instead, he indulged in his own mentality, enjoying the battle in the craziest and most exhilarating way. The shouts in the battle were cries of joy. The blood falling to the ground was a beautiful melody. Although the Zanpakuto seemed worn and weathered, it was sharper than any other existence, as if it could even cut through space. Asken Lavar's complexion was unpleasant. Although his clothes were relatively neat, with a few cuts and blood flowing, his condition was much better than the laughing Kenpachi. However, his complexion was as gloomy as if it could drip water. What kind of monster is this? No matter how I cut, how I cut, how I cut, how I cut. Why won't he go down? He struck the opponent at least 10 times, with each blow cutting into flesh, blood flowing, and flesh and bone separating. However, ha 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 ha, what's wrong? It's only just getting interesting now. Zaraki Kenpachi laughed heartily and swung his Zanpakuto down. Clang. Asken Lavar's footsteps faltered, almost being smashed into the ground by this blow. This guy's strength has increased again. What a joke. Asken Lavar gritted his teeth, exerted force with both hands, and forced Kenpachi back a bit. However, in the next second, Kenpachi, who had just been pushed away, swung his sword fiercely again. His strength became even greater, his force became even heavier, his speed became faster, and his attacks became fiercer. I clearly wounded him. Why? Why did it turn out like this? Hanaretsu praised Kenpachi as every time he brushes past the gates of hell, his strength becomes stronger, making him the only man in the world who can please her. Every time he narrowly escaped death, his strength would increase. In fact, even now, Zhao Shu had already begun to vaguely experience Kenpachi's feeling. The more he fought, the closer he came to death. His own power, however, continued to surge endlessly, and the realism of his template also continued to improve. With each swing of his sword, he would have a higher level of mastery. Who? Askin Nak Lavar gasped for breath. It wasn't until he heard the wheezing sound like a bellows that he finally realized his own condition. I'm actually out of breath? Getting tired from cutting people? If he had said such words to the strongest swordsman in Wano Kuni before, he would have laughed heartily and then cut down that inexplicable guy with one sword. Getting tired from cutting people? What a joke. But now, could it be that I might lose? This thought flashed through his mind. In the next second, PFF'd. Zaraki Kenpachi's Zanpakuto pierced straight into his chest. You were breathing irregularly at the end. That's why I said not to let your guard down. Zaraki Kenpachi calmly retracted his Zanpakuto. This result is really boring. Thump. Askin Nak Lavar fell to the ground, blood flowing, his gaze gradually dimming. Slice. Zaraki Kenpachi sliced and said, it's rare to find someone who can injure me and hear the sound of bells during battle. Such a pity. It's over. Zaraki Kenpachi glanced at the corpses on the ground and turned his head. How boring. I haven't had enough yet. Kozuki Hyori stared blankly at the scene. It's strange. Even though it was mostly Sleepyhead Sajin suppressing Zaraki Kenpachi throughout the fight, leaving wounds on his body. When Zaraki Kenpachi suddenly defeated Sleepyhead Sajin with one strike, she didn't feel surprised at all. Is it over? Kozuki Hyori asked in a low voice. Yeah. Zaraki Kenpachi nodded and turned his head to look at the corpses on the ground. During normal battles, I've developed a habit of showing mercy. If I don't do that, the enemies would be too weak to put up a fight, and there would be no time to enjoy the battle. This guy was pretty good, but unfortunately, just as I was getting excited, he wasted a battle. Zaraki Kenpachi shook his head, holding his sword, and sat down on the side. Despite having killed Wanakuna's strongest swordsman, he felt no excitement at all. Instead, he felt a sense of dissatisfaction. Blood flowed down his clothes. Kozuki Hyori was stunned for a moment before suddenly reacting, quick, let me stop the bleeding for you. Saying that, she quickly ran towards the farm, where there were basic medical supplies such as bandages for the workers and farmers. She returned quickly, leaning over with a worried expression on her face. To be honest, she was a little worried that Zaraki Kenpachi might be the kind of madman who even hated stopping bleeding. But fortunately, he wasn't. Zaraki Kenpachi yawned and allowed her soft hands to wrap bandages and apply medicine on his body. What are you going to do next? Kozuki Hyori asked in a low voice. Zaraki Kenpachi squinted his eyes, blinked, and a hint of excitement flashed through his eyes. I heard that in Wano Kuni, the strongest are the shogun and Kaido? Then, he suddenly stood up. Let's go, let's find them. In the flower capital of Wano Kuni, in the castle tower. Bang, bang, bang. A slightly chubby figure walked up. With each step he took, the entire room trembled. General Kurozumi Orochi raised his head and looked at the man. Queen, it's you. One of the three calamities, the beast's pirate's big signboard, plague, Queen. Queen held a cigar in his mouth, frowning. One of our real fighters died, so of course I had to come. No matter who it is, I will make them know the price of provoking the beast's pirates. Don't worry. Kurozumi Orochi chuckled. I have already ordered Sleepyhead Sajin to go. That guy is definitely dead. Sleepyhead Sajin was the top fighter under the general's command, so sending him out was indeed a sincere gesture. Queen nodded slightly, acknowledging Kurozumi Orochi's arrangement. That guy named Sleepyhead Sajin wasn't much stronger than himself. It could be said that victory was almost certain. However, the next second, oh no, oh no. Suddenly, a panicked samurai ran over. What's wrong? Kurozumi Orochi's face turned ugly. Didn't he see that he was in the middle of a conversation with Kaido's subordinate, Queen? General, something terrible happened. Sleepyhead Sajin is dead. What? Did sleep-crazy Lang Lang die? Actually, it wasn't Kurozumi Orochi who noticed something, but the people below who were normally going to the farm to collect vegetables and grains, and they discovered the body. Although the real fight was killed, Kurozumi Orochi didn't care because sleep-crazy Lang Lang made the move. If sleep-crazy Lang Lang, the #1 swordsman in Wano country, took action, can't the problem be solved? Therefore, even some of the people below didn't know that the farm had been occupied. After all, time was too short and the news hadn't spread yet. So when the people below went to the farm without knowing anything, what they saw was a figure that shocked everyone. Kurozumi Orochi's face turned black, although his face was already quite dark. "Who is it?" he shouted angrily. "Who can kill sleep-crazy Lang Lang? You mentioned to me before, it seems to be something like the 13 court guards." Quinn squinted his eyes. When did someone like that appear on the sea? Or, is it a group of people? The 13 court guards sounds like the name of an organization. But, are they resistance fighters left by the Kozuki clan? Quinn looked at Kurozumi Orochi. These names seem more like Wano country names. Wano country names are very different from names in the outside world. In the future, when Luffy and the others come to Wano country, they will also change their names as disguises, although those so-called Zorojiro and Luffytaro names sound more like insults to the enemy's intelligence. But the name Zaraki Kenpachi does indeed sound more like a person from Wano country. The 13 court guards also seems to be a Wano country-style organization. Maybe. Kurozumi Orochi's face became serious, a hint of fierceness flashed in his eyes. The Kozuki resistance, have they not all disappeared yet? The resistance fighters of the Kozuki clan keep emerging, even though more than 10 years have passed. Black-haired Orochi has always kept them in mind. And there is the prophecy left by Kozuki Hyori and Momonosuke's mother. When the world is as dark as night, embrace the remnants and wait for the dawn. When the clear light of hope arrives, the 9 shadows will cast the rising sun from the east. This was the prophecy of Kozuki Oden's wife, saying that 20 years later, the 9 red scabbards will return and overthrow General Kurozumi Orochi. But Kurozumi Orochi frowned. It's not yet 20 years, her prophecy shouldn't be happening now. But no matter what, now. Kurozumi Orochi suddenly stood up and locked eyes with Quinn. Let's go. To the farm. In fact, it was useless for them to go to the farm because Hikari Asahi and Zaraki Kenpachi had already left. Even the farmers who were transporting the food were gone. They weren't stupid enough to sacrifice their lives for food. Kozuki Hyori and Zaraki Kenpachi, on the other hand, were heading towards Flower Capital, the capital of Wano country. As for why they didn't encounter Orochi's men, it's because they got lost again in a grand manner. Hachimaru, where are we? Zaraki Kenpachi's mouth twitched as he swung his Zanpakuto. A line of fresh blood splattered, drawing a straight line. It's a bandit's hideout, we've gone the wrong way again. Kozuki Hyori shook her head and sighed helplessly. The tendency to get lost has struck again. The two of them wandered around. Even though they were supposed to go to Flower Capital, they ended up running to some bandit's lair. And then, of course, they fought together, but unfortunately, they didn't have much fun. A bunch of useless people. Zaraki Kenpachi disdainfully glanced at the trembling bandits behind him. Wano-kuni is home to many such bandits and thieves. Their strength is not bad, often with real samurai as their backbone, even a leader. There is no other way. General Kurozumi Orochi's rule is too brutal, and most people are unwilling to be ruled by him, so many samurai have fled. But Kaido's factories discharge sewage everywhere. Ordinary farming cannot meet people's needs, so they can only turn to banditry in the mountains for a glimmer of hope. Of course, don't think too highly of these bandits. Their strength is insufficient to rob Kaido and Kurozumi Orochi, so they can only rob the scarce food from ordinary people. Ah. Kozuki Hyori sighed, not knowing whether to be relieved or helpless. Following Zaraki Kenpachi, her sense of direction has also worsened. Even finding the nearby capital has become quite difficult. But perhaps going to the wrong place is a good thing, Kozuki Hyori thought to herself. Although Kenpachi killed the Sleepy Hollow, he was also injured. And fighting against the general, it's probably 80 to 90%. Kurozumi Orochi's strength is also extraordinary. And more importantly, he has an ally, Kaido. The 4 emperors, the strongest beings on land, sea, and air. Although Wano-kuni is isolated from the world, Kaido's reputation is something even Wano-kuni children know. One reason is that many of Kaido's subordinates have stayed in Wano-kuni over the years. The second reason is, many young and arrogant samurai in Wano-kuni wanted to assassinate Kaido, but not a single person returned. Although Sleepy Hollow is known as Wano-kuna's #1 swordsman, he is still weaker compared to Kurozumi Orochi and Kaido. At this moment, a bandit hesitated and spoke up. Zaraki Kenpachi turned his head. May we join you? The bandit asked hesitantly, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Zaraki Kenpachi is very strong, extremely strong. He has never seen such a powerful man before. Perhaps life would be much better under his command. Huh. Why should I? Zaraki Kenpachi furrowed his brow. On the other hand, Kozuki Hyori's eyes brightened. Wait a moment. She seemed to have thought of something, and her eyes sparkled even more. Then she turned her head and asked Zaraki Kenpachi, Kenpachi, let's accept them. Zaraki Kenpachi furrowed his brow. Why? But in Zhao Shu's heart, he laughed heartily. Very good, you finally realized this.